John, can you tell us, and I think both of you, can you tell us what's concerning to you about the current situation and what are the risks that the current outbreak will become a pandemic threat? John, I'll let you go first.
I'm happy to go first. So from my perspective, the thing that has been the most unique about this particular event is not that monkeypox has been exported and has arrived in a different country. This has happened multiple times. It has happened in Europe, it's happened in the UK, it's happened in the United States, it's happened in very many different places around the world. But in the past, it has been exported in a way that was recognized fairly early, and the individual was identified, and there was very little onward transmission. The difference in this outbreak is that it was not a case of there was one individual who was quickly caught. It looks like there has been some transmission ongoing for a while, and that has allowed more transmission because it has essentially been below the radar, not caught by traditional travel medicine approaches or things like that. And that now that it is being recognized, there is a very robust response, and I'm really encouraged by that. I don't think that this represents a situation where there will now be wildfire transmission, but I do think it's something where people have to be aware that now there's a new instance of how this disease has been transmitted around the world, and to be aware that it is a possibility and something that really should be looked into.
Yeah, David, what about your thoughts?
So, I mean, I think that this is definitely not going to turn into a pandemic. I think we're going to be able to control it. There are some challenges, contact tracing, which would be ideal, which, as John has said, with some of the other single importations of monkeypox in the past, we've been able to identify, family members and healthcare workers that have had exposures. But in this case, there are often people that have had multiple exposures and may not even know all their partners, and that's made contact tracing challenging. There is a risk to healthcare workers, which I didn't note, but I think if healthcare workers use proper sort of equipment, with sort of gowns, gloves, masks, and so forth, and eye shields, just basically the same kind of measures we'd use for COVID-19, that will protect them and reduce their risk to pretty much non-existent. I think that I think this is going to come under control, but it's going to take some time. I think it's more widespread, and I think there's some important questions too. Some of the patients are being misclassified as another sexually transmitted infection, and so we need to educate clinicians about how to diagnose this. And then one thing that we have no idea is whether there can be asymptomatic transmission. We're quite attuned to that from what we've learned about SARS-CoV-2, but there's really no known evidence that this can be transmitted without symptoms, but that's because most of the studies of this disease have been in endemic areas where there's very limited resources to study them.
Yeah, what a great point. So the challenges here are that we have lost chains of transmission, which means we're finding cases in the community who we don't know where people may have gotten that disease, and it doesn't seem to be travel like the last time. And as you mentioned, clinically, it seems to be presenting like other things and atypically from what we know about monkeypox, and it may be confused as other aspects. It sounds like maybe another challenge might also be that the incubation period is so long.
Yeah, no, the incubation period is relatively long. I mean, sort of various measures from as short as a few days to as long as almost 3 weeks, but, on average, sort of 5 to 15 days. So that's much longer than a disease like, say, COVID-19, where it's just a few days and then you can sort of recall who you've been with and who you've had close contact with. But if it goes out over 2 weeks or even 3 weeks, the full range of the incubation period, that makes it harder to do contact tracing.